أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings and guidance, peace be upon Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his household, his companions, and all those who follow him until the judgment. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we are talking about fasting in the madhab Al-Hanafi, rahimahullah, and we are on the chapter Babu ma yufsidu as-sawma min ghayri kaffaratin, which means what nullifies the fast without requiring expiation or kaffara that we spoke about yesterday. But the Imam, rahimahullah, he mentions 52 things that nullifies fasting, and the fasting is required to make it up, but not the expiation or kafara. And some of these things, we may apply them on us a little bit differently, but just to mention them, it inshallah will mention it to increase our knowledge. So the following cases do not require expiation. No need for doing kafara, on the basis that the nature of the things that are eaten or such, or eating or drinking such that they contain no nourishment, or they may contain nourishment but there is a valid reason for their conception, or the reason why somebody is breaking the fast. Eating something of this nature would not impose the expiation or kafara, although the day must be made up. So the obligation of making up that day is still there. Moreover, the act which does not include the completion of desire concerning the genitals hold the same ruling, such as the orgasm due to the kissing, touching, playing, and so on, which could happen. It's possible even in these days. Or, for example, it includes as well the swallowing of the paper, all kind of the paper or plastic, which does not require the expiation, on the basis that originally it contains no nourishment, no benefit for the body, but it goes through the mouth. It breaks the fast, so the day is obliged to make it up, but not the expiation or the kafara. Equally, if there is something that is inadequate of being nourishment, such as the raw rice or dot that is unmixed with butter, putting the ear drops or nose, because the connection of everything, if you put drops in your ears or your nose, you will feel it taste in your throat. So those things breaks the fast, and you're obliged to make it up, but not the expiation. As Imam said, وَهُوَ سَبْعٌ وَخَمْسُونَ شَيْئًا. There are 15 things or 57 things that nullifies the fast, but not like necessitate the kafara or expiation. So إذا أكل الصائم خرزا أو عجنا أو دقيق. So if the person, fasting person, eats raw rice, flour, or wheat, grain, any kind of these seeds, the fast is nullified. It's null. Although the expiation, the kafara, is not necessary, is not obliged. أو ملحا كثيرا دفعة. If a person eats a mouthful of salt, he or she is not liable for expiation, for the reason that is not one's desire to have a mouth full of salt, but the circumstances are different if it's a small amount, as we mentioned before. Eating the soil that contains the medical benefits, which is Armani, we mentioned before, that has medical benefit, and the people are mixing with the food and so on. So, and it is not being habit of eating, invalidates the fast, but does not require the expiation, for the reason that if it serves no medical purpose. But the one who was in the habit of eating this non-beneficial earth or soil, the expiation becomes necessary. So that is a small difference. If some has habit and some does not have the habit of consuming this kind of the soil. And then some eating the stone or fruit, cotton, paper, all kinds of the things breaks the fast without obligation of the expiation. Of sefer, eating uncooked sefer jula, lam yudrik wa lam yutbakh. Eating uncooked queens or raw queens nullifies the fast, whereas the expiation is not imposed. And then the Joza Rotba, eating the raw walnut, does not impose the expiation, but it breaks fast. And basically, whatever goes through the mouth, nose, or the ears will break the fast. Swallowing a pebble, metal, soil nullifies the fast with no obligation of expiation. أو احتقن أو استعطى, taking an enema or pouring drops of medicine through the nose or ears breaks the fast, whereas the expiation is not required as well. So because when we are taking this enema or whatever you call it, the injections, we should ask if there is nourishment for the body. So then, yeah, it will break our fast. Otherwise, it will not. But taking drops through the mouth and nose or the ears definitely will break it, because you will feel it in your throat. The forceful pouring of something down the throat. So, for example, you can see in these days people are sleeping, and some others are preparing some. They try to make funny videos, and they're pouring the water on the person. It could happen, for example, in these days, that you are sleeping and nobody knows that you're that you're fasting, and they pour water, so water goes down. It breaks fasting. The fast is nullified, but does not require the expiation. So we can see this. It could happen as well. The drip water oil into the ears nullifies the fast, and this is the soundest view in the madhab, because there is a hadith as evidence. The fast is broken with whatever enters two openings, so through the mouth. That's what the Prophet said. Applying medicine to a wounded of the stomach or head, which then penetrates a cavity reaching the inside of the stomach or brain, nullifies the fast as well. But usually, if there is a big, the wound, danger, that person is not fasting or supposed not to fast because of this kind of wound. So this is just an example. أو دخل حلقه مطر أو ثلج والأفصح لم يبتلعه بالصنع. If rain or snow water enters the throat, or somebody is rushing the water, or rushing on the or spraying the water with the shower, his backyard or so, somebody is running and then the water comes in, so it breaks fast but does not require expiation. And this is the most correct opinion according to the Hanafi school. But if swallows it forgetfully, the fast does not break according to the hadith, as you mentioned before. If you eat or drink, or drink with unintentionally, so then continue as you are, because that is from God, as the Prophet ﷺ. So if one accidentally breaks his fast with the water used for the gargling, you know, when you take madmada fi ila jawfi, so when you take the wudu and you try to throw it with, so that is why it's not really recommended to take a lot of the water in your mouth during the month of Ramadan. Big amount of the water putting in your mouth and nose, so it may go to your throat, so it breaks fast. It goes. You're obliged to make it up, but not. The expiation is not required, so we have to be careful about that as well. If we take wudu, but with a very small amount of the water putting in our nose and our mouth to clean, so in order not to swallow it. أو أفطر مكرها ولو بالجماع. If one is forced to break his fast, even it is through the sexual intercourse, either from husband or wife's side, it breaks fast, and you are obliged to do qada without kafara. Same thing for the female as well. أو أفطرت خوفا على نفسها من أن تمرض من الخدمة أو أمة كانت أو منكوحة. If a married woman or slave woman breaks her fast for the fear of feeling ill because of the duties she performs at home, usually today, you know, there is so many technology issue works for us. The women do not, you know, do everything like before. But if for some reason it could happen, we don't have to ignore it. If something is happening like that, and so, or you don't have to be maybe the man in this case could cook and got tired, also for some reason they have to, so yeah, you will break your fast, you know, and you have to make it up, but the expiation or the kafara is not required because the valid reason. أو صب أحد في جوفه ماء وهو نائم. If the water is poured into the inside of the person who is sleeping, you know, those videos that we can see, you know, in these days, people are making fun from each other and they're pouring the water on the people when they are sleeping. I mean, it will not happen maybe in our homes because everybody knows rules, but for the example, for the youth, when they go and live together with the rest of their friends who are not knowing that they are fasting, it could happen something like that. So yeah, if happens, so then and the water goes in, so yeah, your fast will be nullified, but no expiation for you for that day, just fast. أو أكل عمدا بعد أكله ناسيا, eating or on purpose after eating forgetfully does not impose the expiation, even if one knows, for example, the hadith concerning it, you know, because some people they eat forgetfully. If you remind them, they will stop, but some people, you know, they ignore, so still fast is nullified and no expiation, but they must be make up later on. أو جامع ناسيا ثم جامع غامضا. So if one has, for example, sexual intercourse between wife and husband, forgetting he or she is fasting, and then after, you know, remembering, oh, we are fasting, but then continue to do so, so then, you know, they continue intentionally knowing, so expiation is not necessary, but the qada is required, so the expiation is not necessary upon him on the basis of what we have described above, namely that it has a likeness to break one's fast. So however, the day is obligatory to make it up, but not the expiation. أو أكل بعدما نوى نهارا ولم يبيت نيته. If a person eats after making his intention of fasting in a day and not overnight, the expiation is not required, as held by the Imam Abi Hanifa radiallahu anhu. This was also the view of Imam Nawawi, who is Shafi'i madhab, and who said expiation is not necessary obligation if one breaks his fast after having formed his intention in the daytime. So we have intention in daytime today, and Imam Zufar, who is the student of Imam Abu Hanifa, on the other hand, he held that he is liable for expiation. So if you do expiation, qada will be better if you take by the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. So you may just qada, you or fine as well. وأصبح مسافرا فنوى الإقامة ثم أكل. So if a person begins the day as a traveler and then intends residence and thereafter breaks his fast by eating, so expiation is not necessary upon him, even though it was forbidden to eat. أو أصبح مسافرا, a person begins the day as a traveler, so you want to be traveler, مسافر, and then you change your intentions فنوى الإقامة, and then he changed intention and he intended to be residence, to stay at home. ثم أكل, and then he used the food, or he breaks his fast eating. So no expiation, but qada is there, even if it is forbidden to eat during the month of Ramadan. أو سافر بعدما أصبح مقيما فأكل. So there's the opposite, as Imam said. If a person becomes a traveler after starting the day as a resident and thereafter breaks his fast by eating while he is a traveler, expiation is not imposed upon him, but the qada must be there. أو أمسك بلا نية صوم ولا نية فطر. If a person abstains from eating with no intention, if أمسك بلا نية صوم, بلا نية صوم ولا نية فطر, so he is not intending either to fast or not to fast. There is no intention at all. So he breaks fast and it needs to make it up without expiation. So expiation is not necessary upon this person, though he is required to make up the day because the intention is a requirement, as we mentioned before, when the beginning of the Ramadan, to have intention, and according to the scholars, Hanafi schools, so we need to renew every night our intention that we will fast the month of Ramadan. أو تسحر أو جامع شاكا في طلوع الفجر وهو طالع. If one eats the pre-dawn meal, sahur, or has sexual intercourse during which he has doubt about the raising of dawn, where in reality it had already dawned, then the expiation is not exposed on such a person, though the fast breaks. Yeah, we can say that it could happen, but in our days, everybody has the watches and the phones and alarms. It could happen, but yeah, it's barely can happen to anyone. This may happen before, and that's why we're mentioning here only because of the barakah of the knowledge. أفطر يظن الغروب والشمس باقية. The expiation is not imposed if a person breaks his fast believing that the sun had set when it had not. So the person is breaking his fast because he thought, he's thinking, oh, okay, there is sunrise. As long as there is sunrise, there is a maghrib, and he breaks his fast, and then later on he noticed that it's not time, so his fasting is nullified. He needs to make one day make up, and the expiation is not required. If there is an orgasm due to sexual intercourse, which any means, either by kissing, touching, playing, whatever the case might be, so same thing, the fast is nullified and the expiation is not required. أو أفسد الصوم غير أداء Ramadan. There is no expiation if a person breaks a fast other than the fast of the Ramadan, though one is liable to make up the day. The same thing for the woman. When we come to this rule, having sexual intercourse could happen to the male or the female, from the wife or husband. So any kind of these orgasm that could happen between them for any reason, so the fast will be nullified, and they are obliged to make up a day, and there is no expiation according to the correct view of Imam Abu Hanifa. So then expiation is not imposed on a person who eats the food that is stuck between his teeth. As we mentioned before, it could happen that one, but it breaks fast and no expiation. So these are things that can nullify our fast. So, but we don't have to worry. We just make day up, and there is no expiation for that. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help all of us, to guide us to straight path and increase our knowledge. We ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to witness this Ramadan, to accept it from us, to increase our righteousness, closeness to Him. We ask Him for the unity, understanding each other, respect, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help on all these. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.